You're listening to a Day1.fm show.
Hi everyone, I'm Jodie, founder of strategic branding agency Tiny Hunter. It's fair to say, pretty obsessed with the power of brand to help businesses grow. And that passion for me is beyond business, because I really think that when businesses thrive, so do the people that are in them, but also the people that are around them.
Hi, I'm Laura Campbell, founder of Lily, and I'm on a mission to lighten the load physically and emotionally for parents. We create practical, doctor approved baby gear that helps you carry your kid without breaking your back or losing your mind. And I just love sharing my founder journey, the reality of building a business from the ground up, the ups, the downs, the failures, and learnings, all while raising a family.
Hello, I'm Verity, the founder of Tradie Wives, an online collaboration platform supporting the wives and partners of tradies in managing a business, helping elevate the women in these roles to make a difference within the trade industry.
My name's Jo Downer, and I'm a female entrepreneur who has built a few different startups myself, and now love working with female founders and entrepreneurs to kind of, guide them along the pathway. It can be lonely and bumpy, and there's lots of steps and hurdles along the way and challenges. And I love kind of working with them. I do that through a consulting company that I have called Monday Mojo. But yeah, I think that it's just about supporting, anybody that's crazy enough, brave enough to go and start a small business to help where I can.
Connecting like-minded women is vital to the work we do here at Mums & Co. And one of the best parts of producing this podcast each fortnight is the opportunity it brings to connect you, our wonderful listeners, with some of the most inspiring voices in the small business and entrepreneurial world. This season of Mumbition is all about lighting that spark for your business journey, whether you're just dreaming up ideas or you've already started to tell absolutely everybody you know who'll listen to it. I'm Lucy Kippist, the community manager here at Mums & Co, and I'm also the co-host of this podcast, and I'm really excited today to introduce you to 4 amazing women, all from different industries. They each bring a wealth of business know-how and global experience, and they're passionate about supporting women just like us. We have Laura Campbell, founder of Lily Hip Surfer Hip Seat. We have Verity Hare, founder of the extraordinary Tradie Wives community. Jo Downer, a serial founder and dynamic leader. She has a proven track record in operations and project management, and she has an exciting new project in the works. And Jodie de Vries, founder of Tiny Hunter. Jodie is a marketing strategist and an expert in creative product development and innovation. Our conversation's going to dip into what it takes to get from a concept or an idea to a business in real life, marketing strategies for beginners, how to make your business feel really personal as you grow, and of course, strategies for managing home, family, and business from people who have actually been there. So the intention today is to share advice that is obviously not just valuable, but we also really hope it's going to sound like talking to a friend who's been there and done that. Thank you all so much. I am so excited to have not 1, 2, but 4 amazing guests joining me today for this panel discussion. Now, I want to kick off with the first question. What role do you think storytelling and personal branding play in attracting early customers? And how can women tap into these tools to connect with their audience? Jodie, do you want to start us off?
I think, honestly, storytelling and personal branding are everything right now, and everything, especially in the early days. When you're starting out, you don't really have a long list of clients. You might not have case studies, but what you do have is you and your values, your vision, your story. And you need to really leverage your personal networks as much as you can, get word of mouth. But I think beyond that, there's just so much noise these days, and even more so with the trajectory of AI. So, people can create all kinds of content right now, but what they can't do is be you. They cannot copy you. So the more that you leverage that, the more powerful, the more people will connect with you, and the more, you'll be differentiated.
100%. And I love that you've touched on AI. I really hope we can talk a bit more about that as we go on with the conversation. But reassuring to hear that from you as a professional branding storyteller, that's the case. Laura, how would you respond to that question?
Yeah, look, as a product-based business owner, it's storytelling is everything. It's basically my strategy. There's so much competition out there, especially in the baby space. So many mums are on mat leave, want to come up with a business idea. And so I really felt that in the 18 months before I launched, I actually started my behind the scenes founder journey. I'd never created a reel before. I'd never really talked vulnerably before. I'm from the corporate sector initially. So I use that 18 months to really understand my target customer and understand how I could create my own message, my own stories, and articulate it in a way that felt authentic to me. And I learned through what people were engaging with, what they weren't engaging with. And I feel like the storytelling angle is something that everybody should have in their business, especially the founder journey.
And you do that so well. Laura's an excellent one to watch on LinkedIn. I just love how openly you've shared every aspect of business building. Even the other day, I think you were sharing about the color palette for your new branding. Is that right? I don't want to mess that up for
Yeah,
you, but I'm pretty
absolutely.
sure. Yeah.
As a founder, there's so many decisions that you need to make that can become bottlenecks. So actually including your followers and community in that decision-making process makes it easier because they're the customer and you can create solutions that appeal to them. But I think it's so important to also show your failures, show the products that didn't work out, show the mistakes that you've done with shipping. It makes you feel like more of a human, and people want to engage and relate to humans as well. So I love to share the positive things when we have the great, wins, the awards, etc., but balancing that out with the negatives, the learning, so that you can encourage other people to start their own business or to lean more into your brand.
Now, Verity, you're a custodian of a humongous community of women. How much has storytelling played in the creation of Tradie Wives?
Huge, absolutely huge. And I think that, sort of piggybacking off what Laura said, it's that relatability. In the early days, I think it's people sort of were drawn to the community because they could it's like they see a little bit of themselves in you. They kind of go, oh, I feel like that, or this is what she's talking to, and I've been there, and I wonder how she dealt with that or navigated that. So I think it comes down to a lot of authenticity, relatability, and just sort of, like Laura said, sharing all the vulnerability and personal stuff so people can kind of relate and go, oh, I feel like that too. I want to be part of this, and I want to, be surrounded by these sort of like-minded people.
And you obviously play a really important role there too, as the custodian of that community, because you're dropping in and responding to other people's vulnerability as well, and keeping that storytelling going. So that's really important part too, I feel, in your context.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. How about you, Jo? So you've created a couple of businesses now.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think it's authenticity touches across not just the business that you build and how you attract customers and what they, sometimes more often than not, we're building a business because we recognize an opportunity that, in the market or something that we would have loved ourselves. But I also think that I love particularly about female entrepreneurs is that they do tell their story so well, and they kind of show the human sides of their businesses, like why they exist. And for me, probably what I've been doing most in the last couple of years is working with an extension of that as businesses go on to raise funding or capital, and that authentic person behind the business, and how attractive that can be to raise capital or take on investment as you kind of go forward, because that real human story, the real need for it can be so powerful in that story in a pitch deck or a presentation. So yes, is amazing on the customer front and building a brand and your why, but it also has other kind of these tangents where if you're raising capital and so forth, and often when we're developing a pitch deck or something, and I'm sure that this is probably consistent across the group here, if you start with your story, you've really kind of captured the audience's attention, and it gives you that credibility, of the lived experience. So, this authentic storytelling touches so many aspects of our business.
100%. And I think something just popped into my head then that I think is important to have in that, if you're a first-time business owner, having someone like a mentor, someone to share with them first what you're planning on sharing, like sort of like, you know, an editor is the wrong word, but having someone to guide that as a strategy for you so that you're being authentic, but you're also sharing what's going to best serve the business at the same time.
Yeah, definitely. I think that often the best pitches are the ones that are most captivating. And often it can be that, you know, the product or the service or whatever it is, you iterate. A business isn't the same as what you start with to where you kind of you go on this journey. But if the person shows that kind of passion and you know, real belief in it, that's a customer buys into that. And, you know, as well as, you know, all of your marketing content and so forth. But you know, as equally do an investor if you're trying to impress and, you know, show that passion for what you do.
Yeah, 100%. So possibly a question I should have started with, but obviously this season is devoted to women who are starting a business or even just considering it. And budget is obviously a huge part of that beginning step. And most of us are starting with a limited budget. I'm sure there's a lucky few out there that have a great line of credit to start something with, but more often than not, it is something limited. Advertising and marketing is something that we're all told we need to do, and obviously it's essential to creating a business. But how can a woman with a limited budget effectively start to target and reach their ideal customers without really overspending in those first few stages on advertising and marketing? Laura, how would you answer that question?
What I'd say is in the first few months or the first year while you're building the business, really focusing on your organic and your owned channels. And what I did in the first 6 months of launching was there's so many different messages, different pain points, different customer transformations you could communicate. There's so many out there. It's actually seeing which ones, when you put it through your Instagram or your TikTok or on your website, which ones are being engaged with more. Because there's nothing worse than spending money on ads and you're putting the wrong messaging there that's just not connecting. So I'm a big believer in testing on your owned channels, seeing how that resonates, and then start to put paid behind it. One of my favorite strategies is like community engagement. So finding those communities in Facebook, on Instagram, where you can ask for support, give back support, and really build your business community as well as your customer community. So definitely in the early stages for Hackalily, I managed to get up to 2,500, 3,000 followers before launching through engaging in those Facebook groups. And I think that's a great way to get feedback on your product or your service as you're building it.
Great advice there. Jodie, how would you respond to that? What's your advice there?
I think that's awesome advice. I guess what I'd add is I think the clearer and more specific you can be about your ideal customer, the better. I think the tighter the focus, the easier it's going to be able to connect with them, the less you're going to waste time and money. And even if you can just have coffees, have conversations, talk to your ideal customer, hear their pain points in their words, and you can infuse that language into your messaging. As well as that, I would say when you're being really specific, you can think about where are they hanging out? Where can I show up and be genuinely helpful? As mentioned, things like community engagement groups, but also, beyond digital, there might be local events, there might be conferences. You could partner with another small business maybe that's got the same, and trust from their audience. So yeah, thinking about who they are really specifically, talking to them as much as you can, and then going and being where they are in a helpful, non-salesy way.
Yeah. And what's your thoughts on like focus groups at that stage, at that really early stage?
I think that personally, I think you can just be having really lo-fi conversations. I think having one-on-one conversations with people, you can get so much great information, and it doesn't need to be an interview. It's just, could be a virtual coffee or it could be real life. I think just one-to-one conversations is a really great, cheap, place to start. It could be the cost of a coffee. They'll probably be really happy that you want to hear and value what they've got to say.
And Google Forms can be so valuable as well. I was able to like host a survey the other week, get over 100 responses, which forms a really great, survey sample as well. So there's great resources out there. I just wanted to add as well on my point is that people within your industry, going to industry meetups is so valuable because those strategic brand partnerships costs nothing. You've got the same audience, the same customer, but possibly you're selling different products. So I've formed some really great relationships with the hip surfer is a baby carrier. So forming relationships with breastfeeding pumps and, pregnancy pillow brands and things like that, where you can give value to the customer and reach their audiences as well.
Great point. Thank you for adding that. So we're talking about the importance of identifying your ideal customer. But what about when you are looking to create a goal? So you know who that customer is, and working out the next step would then be how many of those wonderful ideal clients am I going to need? Now, we've sort of focused on the idea of reaching your first 1,000 customers as a good place to start. But I would love to hear, Verity, starting with you, do you agree with that as a good general goal? Is it too big? Does it depend on the business? How would you respond to that?
I think it's a lot. I think 1,000 customers is a lot. I think it's good to have goals. I mean, I think when I first started out, I wasn't really too numbers focused. I was just kind of like in the business, being authentic, sort of growing it organically. I wasn't too focused on hitting like a certain number. I know you have to do that sort of financially, but I think just enjoying the journey and like celebrating all your wins, like even the small ones. I think it's not like this ultimate goal of, oh, my first 1,000 customers, because that is a lot. Like, I don't think after 6 years business, I probably don't even have 1,000 customers. And I think that you just have to really sort of, celebrate all wins. If you get 5 customers, that is so exciting. If your first one is so exciting, like just kind of, it's good to keep sight of a goal that you want, but also don't discredit, your first few, and, celebrate those wins as you go along.
I love that. The invitation to celebrate anything. I don't think we talk about that enough. And yes, getting your first customer is such a momentous moment. And so thank you for sharing that. I also think it's really interesting to hear that you didn't start with that goal, because can you remind us now how many members of your community you have?
So we've got 30,000 in our Facebook group, but we've got across all of our platforms, we've got about 45,000, I think.
Wow. Yeah. So I'm just highlighting that and congratulations, that's fabulous. But yeah, I just wanted to highlight that as your intention in starting this was not to get to that number. You probably didn't even think of it, but there you are, you're there now. So congratulations. Jo, what do you think about this numbering? Like how important is that in terms of the way that you look at creating a business?
Yeah, I think it comes from that. Does it come from that statement, 1,000 true fans? Don't, and, kind of reiterate what Verity's saying. And when you start out, I think I'm building something new at the moment, and the temptation to go broad is huge, right, in terms of customer base. But I know that I'll be way more effective if everything from a messaging to a go-to-market to, if I stay niche and specific and stay there. And that's what I take from the 1,000 true fans, is that, try and more so on the sense of the word true than the number 1,000. Like, just try and stay within, a smaller customer. Don't try and be everything to everyone. Just have people that your business genuinely kind of resonates with, so that, you don't get all these mixed messages. You're not out there kind of throwing 1,000 things at the wall and trying to make it stick. If you can kind of bring it down to a single customer avatar and get people that really are like crying out for your business, product, service, or whatever you're kind of building, and stay super focused, that's kind of more what I take away from that statement. Like, how do you get those people that just are raving about your business, and how do you kind of find them and stay super focused at the beginning to kind of maximize your time, energy, resources, budget even. And that's probably more so what I take from, the 1,000 true fans.
Yeah, raving fans. That's great advice. Now, I did have another question for you, Jo, and it is related to this. So We are told often when people join Mums and Co. I started out my business. I'm in this, might be in the end of the second year, third year. I was relying on word of mouth, and suddenly it's kind of stopped, or the momentum has stopped in that regard. How else can I grow? So what's your advice for that next step? Now, I know that's probably difficult because you don't know what business people are in, but generally, what would you advise someone who came to you and said that?
I think this happens to so many business owners. You kind of exhaust your organic network, and then you think, maybe you're kind of been riding this wave of business growth based on your own network. But I think probably to Laura's point, like you kind of suggested some ways that you can reach new kind of connections, whether it be through industry and network, like lean on the people that have already supported you to kind of open doors. And I think there's also like collaborations and partnerships where people can kind of, have adjacent businesses. You have the same audience, but you have a different product or service. What can you do there to kind of open new doors? That isn't necessarily a big spend, but maybe your own network has taken you so far, and then you think, oh my goodness, my business is plateauing or the demand isn't there, and it's only that you just need to push into that next phase of connections and network. And I think a few things we've touched on, like Verity's got an amazing community. I'm sure that you encourage business owners to kind of collaborate in there if they've got complementary services or products. And Laura's talked about building network and going to industry events, but also reaching out to do collaborations or partnership, different types of promotions with other business owners. I think that you just need to kind of stretch into that next chapter of your reach, and it's off, and it doesn't necessarily need to be confronting or challenging. It can be still quite warm and genuine, but it's just maybe people just need a little bit of support to be able to do that. And once you've done it, you kind of you get the confidence to keep on doing it. It can and really kind of take your business to the next level. But I think that you're absolutely right. There does come a time where you can kind of tap out on your own network.
Thanks for that, Jo. Verity, just on that, what is your advice for as you've scaled, keeping that personal connection? Because I know that that's what people talk about when they talk about Tradie Wives, and you can see that from your Facebook page. There's that warmth still there despite the size, or in spite of the size. How have you created that?
I've implemented a self developed method of the grow and pause. So it's like I was very about all the things. I wanted to do all the things, like we talked about, trying to be all the things to all the people. So I was constantly pulled a million different ways, and I had to really think about, like, I go through a growth stage and then I pause, and I don't focus on growth anymore. I just focus on integrating that kind of growth period. So I do a grow and then I'll pause it and really make sure, whether it's new members into the community, a new product or service that we've developed, that it integrates, that it all runs smoothly before then going on to the next growth period. So it's just kind of like stopping and reviewing. And especially when it comes to like my Facebook community as well, like when I let an influx of people in, just making sure that they kind of understand the lay of the land and the way things work and the way that we talk to each other and communicate, and making sure that they're not kind of upsetting the apple cart, and that they are not going to throw off that personal nature of the group that we've developed over the years. So it's definitely, I think, sort of growth and then pause, and making sure that that integrates before going on to the next growth stage.
Love that advice. Thank you. Jodie, now content marketing obviously plays a role in this too, in terms of attracting your new customers beyond that initial referral loop. Can you share some of the strategies that we can use to do that really effectively as an early stage business owner?
Yes, content. That's a thing, I guess. I always like to say perception is reality. It is reality. It's how your product or your service that you've worked so hard on shows up in the world. And, sometimes there can be a disconnect. So you've got this really high quality, premium product, but then that's not reflected. And so many people that come into contact with you are not ready to buy. So you need that content to build the trust and the credibility. And I guess it helps you scale in a way beyond that word of mouth. I think it's a big pain point for all business owners. And I think it's, trying to be focused. You can't do everything. You can't be everywhere. You just need to be really intentional, figure out what your audience cares about, and think about how you can add value to them, how you can be helpful to them. And whatever it is that you're doing, consistency really helps in terms of building familiarity. So, it might be something simple, you're showing up each week with a tip or a story, building that authenticity that we've been talking about, and just trying to become that go-to that they trust and then eventually will buy from. So yeah, being consistent, showing your values. Any content that you are creating, think about how you can get more out of it, how you can repurpose it. Not just, create one piece and send it out into the world. If you do something that's longer form, how can you, take a blog post and get, 10 different social posts from it? Can you make a video about it? I think with content too, it's really hard because different people have different styles of content, right? You might be someone that really likes video, or you like writing. And I think don't fight what you naturally enjoy and are better at. Don't listen to, you should be doing this and you should be doing that. I think find something that helps you lean into your strengths, and then just double down on that, but make the most out of it. And I guess above all, just try and make it as human as possible, because there's such an inundation in terms of AI content and AI sounding things and AI comments. So just, yeah, again, just be you as much as you can, you or your brand. I guess we've got solopreneurs and, small business owners that might have a team. So, yes.
And just in terms of building a strategy around that too, I know this is probably a huge question, but just in terms of, obviously you're going to start out thinking, okay, well, in my case, I love podcasting, so I'm going to do a podcast every week to promote my business. Then you get a certain point down the road, and you've got to review that and think, okay, so the content has to be slightly different. Like, what's a good rule of thumb in terms of, I've got a strategy for 3 months, and then you review it at that point, or 6 months, or how do you sort of approach that?
I think keep it simple. I think it really does help to have a plan on a page in terms of what you want to do. And I think, people, even when they're posting, it can make it a lot easier if you have a bit of a structure. So if you know that every Wednesday you are sharing something that's a bit more behind the scenes, a bit more founder's story, on a Thursday, you're going to do something that's a bit more educational in terms of your space or whatever it might be. So I think, having themes or pillars of the type of content that you want to make really helps. Just takes, away one more thing to think about. I think you constantly need to be assessing, I guess, and seeing you'll start seeing patterns that some things will work, some things might not be working. What can you adjust? I think if you can create a little bit of content in a batch and have some that's pre-prepared, that does help, because small business owners are the busiest people in the world. And yeah, if you can have a batch, so you've got some things ready, and then you don't lose that pleasure of being able to do something ad hoc because you've got these other things that are pre-planned and working for you. So yeah, does that help?
Does
Does
help.
that answer your
That really,
question?
Laura,
And I've got to add one
Yeah.
more thing. Sorry, I'm just thinking, one tool that I find can be helpful is thinking about that customer journey, right? So you've got the people that don't know anything about you, so that's kind of like they need the awareness. Then you've got the people that know you and they're thinking about you, then maybe they buy from you, and then you've got the people that have bought from you. So I think it can help to just draw those sections and think, what am I doing in each of these places? Because maybe you're doing great stuff in the middle, or you're really good at keeping existing happy, but you've got no one coming in at the beginning. So thinking about that whole journey and making sure that you do have activity in the different places, I think can be helpful.
Yeah, that's a great tip. Customer journey mapping. Super.
Yeah.
I feel like we could have.
And I think it can be really simple, right? But I just think using that as a lens for how you're thinking about what you're doing can really help.
Yeah. So yeah, there's some clear themes in this already. It's about, identifying your ideal customer, identifying their journey, and knowing yourself really. What's important to me? what methods am I sorry, what channels do I like? What kind of content is it easiest for me to create? Do I feel passionate about? So just some clear, really simple things. Laura, I would love to bring you in at this point because I know you touched on this earlier. Is there anything you're absolutely busting to say in response?
Regarding social channels and content marketing?
Yeah.
I think the biggest advice I'd have for people wanting to get into it is to just get comfortable with being awkward. And guys, you can have a strategy, but the market and the platforms and the channels are changing so often right now, planning 6-12 months in advance. I'm a big believer in not going towards friction. So I'll put a lot of things out there on different channels. No idea if they'll stick, but I love experimenting. And you'll be surprised sometimes at what sticks. Then you can create a strategy around it. So I think it's really focusing on how much planning do you do, or just get out there and do it. See what you enjoy doing, see what feels aligned to you, see what people engage with, and that forms the basis of your content strategy and how you'll build community.
I love that advice. And what does that look like practically? Like, are you setting aside time in the week to experiment with that in the month? Like, how does
It's
that
normally with a glass of wine in an evening.
Nice.
When I can't do, really thoughtful, strategic things, my brain's dead at the end of the day. Maybe I've got maths on the TV, I've got a glass of wine, I've heard about this new app, I've heard about this new community group. You go stalk people, turn it into a bit of a fun exercise. So yeah, I've definitely found some communities and things like that. And often I've now got a virtual assistant in the Philippines. So I'll actually get her to go and do a bit of research for me, see what the competitors are doing, see what other brands in the baby space are doing, and then let's regroup and talk about that. But when it comes to like scaling up on those channels or those communities that you find, I've started to use a few apps to help me automate it. So one of my favorite ones at the moment is actually repurpose.io. I'm not sure if anyone here has heard of it. I'm learning now that I feel natural in Instagram and Facebook. I know that mums, when they've got newborn babies, they're going to be there. They want to be part of communities. So I'm turning up where I feel comfortable. TikTok is not comfortable for me. Like, I've not got time for it. There's lots of hooks, there's real-time things, and it's just, it feels friction. There's friction. It doesn't feel aligned. So all of my Instagram posts and reels just get repurposed to TikTok. When I've got more money, more budget, someone to help me, I'll create an actual strategy there. But now it's given me thousands of views, impressions, and engagements each month. So it's better than doing nothing. I've got my Instagram reels are getting published to YouTube shorts. Some of them have popped off and I've gotten thousands and thousands of impressions and clicks and views. So I'm learning through testing automatically. When I see them start popping off more, I'll put more time and engagement into growing them.
Love that. Experimentation with a glass of wine. Sounds pretty good. Thank you. And actually, Instagram to YouTube shorts, that's super cool.
Yeah, it really is. And it's the founder content that really pops off on the YouTube shorts. And interestingly, then I'm able, whilst I'm doing all of that for free, the ones that are getting engaged with most are the ones that I'm then putting money behind in Google ads or in Meta ads. So it's a really good testing ground.
Thank you for sharing all of that, Laura. Does anyone want to chime in at all? Is anyone busting to say anything in response to this?
I'm learning a lot as well.
Yeah.
It's so good. I'm like, oh yeah, I'm writing things down as I'm going. I'm like, it's great.
Laura, you've done so many. You do, like, if you had to bucket your themes of content, Laura, into, like, I think I probably see a lot of your behind the scenes founder stuff, which is really authentic and obviously resonates with me as someone that's, kind of taken the journey as well of being a small business owner. But do you consciously kind of put your content into buckets and find that some convert more than others into actual customers, or how does it work?
Yeah, definitely. So there's lots of pillars when it comes to actually, like, I've got different customers like mums, dads, grandparents, etc. So there's lots of micro ones, but the main ones for me are education. Like, it's a new product category in Australia, my product. So I do lots of education around it. So that's one. Proof is another one, to build trust. So I'll talk about the doctors, I'll talk about the reviews, talk about the awards we've won. Another one is like my founder content, behind the scenes, my perspective. And I generally tend to go around those. One thing I do want to focus more on is having more fun. I've just rebranded. It's all about being more about laughing about the chaos of parenthood, clever hacks for parenthood, and really bringing more value. I really believe in that, but I don't enjoy creating that content. It's so hard to find a good meme and then to go and create a carousel about hacks for this. So I need to sort of find a work stream for that because I know it's really beneficial for my community. So I know there's lots of areas I need to grow in as well, but you can't do them all at the same time, all at once, or yourself.
So, I mean, that's great though. Like, even just that information of the way you think about those three, buckets, obviously you're ticking off like the people that want to follow you and are passionate about supporting your business, and other brands that might want to work with you because they're like, oh wow, she's like me, I can reach out for some kind of network opportunity or collaboration. But then you kind of ticking the box on the product, why doctors and kind of all of that kind of trust, building the trust in, and then speaking directly to your customer and understanding their pain point.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. You can take it too far sometimes. So the other day I did post on LinkedIn and then remove my article because I love showing the failures. That's how you build communities, showing I totally effed this up, but this is what I learned, what I'm taking away from it. But right now, to a degree, I need to be kind of perceived to be a bigger brand because I'm trying to enter new markets. I want to get wholesale distributor deals with brands in Dubai and the UK. So talking about my mistakes, I think, are okay in a certain degree on certain channels, and I'm learning that balance. But you only learn through doing. So I'd say to everyone, have a go, see what feels awkward and different, and try it. And you can always delete it, you can always remove it, you can always improve on it, but just do it to start with.
Great advice. Thank you for sharing that, Laura. Jodie, were you starting to say something before? Did I cut
Well,
you off?
I was just going to say, I think we've just nailed small business in a sentence. Experimentation with a glass of wine. I love it.
Yes. Maybe it could be our new slogan here at Mums and Co.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if that would fly with our new.
No, I don't think so.
Yeah, maybe not. But yeah, I love it. Thank you all so much. And yes, this is exactly the kind of vibe I wanted to create from this conversation. You just, like, a one-to-one interview is great, but like 4 amazing brains is, even more amazing. So a couple of last questions before we wrap up. I just want to touch quickly on partnerships and collaborations. Does anyone have anything they want to share about that, about approaching those? Is when you start a business a good time to do this?
I think any time is a good time to do this. I think, it's really about relationships, and, you want to find individuals or businesses who've got the same values as you and share an audience, but, are sort of adjacent. And I think we've touched on this a little bit. So, and I think it doesn't need to be some massive thing. It doesn't have to be complicated. I think it can be, maybe you're doing a joint Instagram live, or, putting some products together for a giveaway or something simple. The main thing is you just want to make it win-win, and you want to show that you've thought about that when you're reaching out to someone, that you've got an idea, you've thought about them and what's in it for them, and make it really easy, I guess, for them to say yes. And I think if you do it, with generosity, great things can happen no matter what size you are.
Yeah, I love that. So it's so important. The intentionality of something is so key. Verity, I know you guys have had some great wins in this partnership space, even really recently. What would your advice be?
Yeah, agree with Jodie. It's got to definitely be win-win, and I think that it is about how your brands naturally work together to solve issues or problems within your business. So for us, we look to other businesses. So in our community, we often see a lot of the same problems coming up. So we sort of think, okay, who can we partner with that can kind of help solve these issues for our community that kind of do the same thing in the same industry. So we're always looking to partner with people that can help us um, solve these problems, but also who can help us to kind of create the change that we want to make within the industry, with their networks and that sort of stuff. But very importantly, like Jodie said, it has to be win-win. There's got to be an equal balance in terms of partnerships when you're reaching out to people. So I think that's something to definitely keep in mind.
Salient advice. Jo, Laura, anything you guys would like to add?
I'd love to share just one or two things. And I think it's really important with partnerships, especially when you're smaller. So I've got 10,000, almost 10,000 followers. That's still quite small compared to some brands that I would love to partner with. So a lot of the time, if you want to collaborate with bigger brands, about 2 months ago, I managed, now this was a little complex, but a giveaway with 15 brands. I did all the legwork, a landing page to collect emails for the chance to win the Ultimate Mama giveaway. What this meant was these big brands with 100,000 plus followers, they didn't want to run a big complex giveaway, but they were really happy to be part of one. And we managed to get over 700,000 followers together through 15 brands and get lots of followers, get lots of email addresses. And I think that's a really interesting way. I built direct relationships with them by doing the legwork as the smaller brand and got access to their followers at the same time. So be prepared to put a bit more work in if you want to work with an aspirational brand or partner. And at the same time, thinking outside of your category. So I've wanted to partner with doctors, physios, osteopaths to help bring credibility to my business. And a lot of them want to build their own following. They want to be seen as thought leaders in their industry. So go and offer to do a Q&A to get some questions for a blog. You get really honest testimonials and comments that sit on your website that can be turned into collab social posts. So I always lead with bringing value to them so that it's mutually beneficial, but lead with the value to get those partnerships you really dream.
Love that. Love that. Jo, what about you? Anything to add there?
I would just say, don't be afraid to reach out for a collaboration if you're brand new, because you might bring something completely different to the collaboration. Like to Laura's point, you might bring time, or you might bring effort, you might bring expertise of, something you've done previously. Being early to market doesn't necessarily mean that you aren't a good partner for another bigger, perceived, bigger brand, because you might bring something completely different to the table. But just, be creative and be open to other opportunities, and don't be afraid of getting, no, it's not for me right now. Because that's probably happened to all of us in different situations. It doesn't mean that's a no forever. It just might be, for whatever reason, the other brand or who you're reaching out to, it's not the right time for them. But, you might have built a connection that will bear fruit down the track, or there might be another opportunity to work with a different company. So I think it's just, sometimes don't overthink it. Just go out, think about, what am I bringing to this collaboration or partnership? Start with that, to Laura's point, go in with, what do you bring and what's the value that you're offering? And then you just don't know, where that conversation might go. It might be something you never thought of, so yeah, be bold and brave.
Great advice. And don't be afraid. Don't be afraid of a no, because it might not always be a no. I love that advice. The final question I wanted to touch on was just, well-being for ourselves in this time of starting a business, or, more and more we're seeing women who are doing a job already and thinking about a business. But what would you guys advise a woman who is about to start, or is starting, or is in the early stages of a business, in terms of looking after herself? What's one thing that you guys do to keep yourselves, I suppose, sane, balanced, happy, reminding of your purpose and why you're doing this? Is there something that you really love doing that helps you feel connected to yourself throughout all of this?
Wine and maths.
Perfect.
I was going to say, find people that are in your corner, right? Because we're all projecting this, persona out there that we've got our act together. We all know what we're doing. It's all perfect, and so on and so forth. But if you've just got someone else, and not necessarily your friends or family, because they can get a bit sick of hearing us bang on about our businesses, and it's not, you've got to kind of find the space, I guess. But just have a couple of good people in your corner that you can kind of go, that understand where you are on this road.
I couldn't agree with that more. It's like finding turning up and going to meetups or community groups to actually find your people. And I think it's great chatting here. I have so many Google and Zoom chats, but I personally crave that human connection. I moved to the Gold Coast. I didn't know anybody, and through a little bit of networking, putting myself out there, I've got my girls who I can just message on WhatsApp and be like, my sales have tanked today. How are you feeling? Like, it's this moral support for the journey you're all going on. And then the other thing is love to go and do work at a cafe that's attached to my gym. I do the work, I'm in the space, I'm in my workout clothes, get 3 hours of work done, and then I can just like decompress and be a better person. My husband prefers me more when I've had a workout during the day.
I love that advice. How about you, Jodie? What's your secret?
Oh, I wish I knew the secret. I do think that it's really important. What I've found helpful is figuring out what gives me energy, what drains my energy, and I guess trying to be conscious, even though I've got a lot of moving parts, how I structure my time. So I'm doing the right things at the right time. Like I'm really good in the morning. I've got that blocked out. It's kind of like my time to think and be more in flow, I guess, and have, meeting free days help too, if you can do that. So I really try and think about my time and how I can space it out so that I've got energy. And yes, for me, I've realized exercise is really important. It's taken me a really long time to figure that out, but, I'm really trying to make sure I prioritize myself and my exercise and things like that, because then I'm more productive in the business and, better for the family as well.
I love that. And Verity, I wanted to ask you, because I know how many business owners, you're connecting with at Tradie Wives, and I know that mental health comes up a lot. So is there something that you notice that, the women core to your community are doing to kind of protect theirs? I mean, aside from having that incredible space to share, which I think is really important.
I think it is, just making sure that you carve out time for yourself. And I think as well, like for our tradie wives, they're kind of, they're working with their partners, and obviously they're living together, they're married, it's all very intertwined. So I think having clear boundaries and clear separation between, work and life is really helpful. And also, having some time away just for yourself. And making sure that you put it in someone gave me some advice once. They're like, make sure you put your time in a diary as if you would a Zoom meeting or anything like that. So like it's in the diary, it's booked, you have to do it. And it's hard. It's a discipline, because it's sort of like you'll see it and you'll go, oh no, I'll just move that. I'll add this meeting and I'll do that. But you have to have that discipline, because it really benefits you in the long run. And I think as well, like for me, I don't work on a Friday generally. I usually don't plan anything for a Friday, and I go and do something that I enjoy. But you definitely have to have that time away and book it in as if you would any other appointment.
Fantastic. Love that advice. Thank you all so very much for joining today. It's been absolutely delightful, and what a brains trust this is. I hope we can do it again in the near future.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to today's episode. Don't forget to subscribe via Spotify or Apple Podcasts. Mums & Co is the network helping business owning women to start, connect and grow. Join us today at mumsandco.com.au.